out. Okay, hi all. Welcome to wisdom class number 111. That's a special class. 111. 111 classes we've had now. Gotta love that. So this class is there's no good or good or bad or bad. And Robin, is that correct grammar?
I'm not even sure.
She's the teacher. No, it is not correct grammar. It is horrible. But
Sounds good the way you're using it.
it is terrible grammar. So sorry, teacher, but I'm also a teacher, and I'm like, yeah, this is terrible. But you know, it makes sense to me. And it's kind of a big one because it talks a lot about this life and what we're going through and who we are. So let's just launch right into this funness that we have going on here. And let's talk about good or good or bad or bad. So first thing to think about is how when it comes to good, bad, right and wrong, you know, all of that kind of stuff, when you really think about it, I want you to process these pieces. It's a matter of opinion. I know that the majority of our societies dictate what is right and wrong, and our societies will dictate what is good or what is bad to do, okay? But I'm going to tell you that perspective is everything when you look at this from a higher perspective. And I want you to think about cultural differences in societies. Certain societies accept particular things and wouldn't make them illegal, but other societies do make them illegal. So it makes something right or wrong. So is it really right or wrong? Let's just use something like right now, some states in the United States are allowing psychedelics where others are not. Is it right? Is it wrong? Did you know that some people will have like the most ridiculous rules? If you look at just Google the most ridiculous rules, you're going to find some things you will be shocked with. It's really a matter of perspective. Now, should we have rules? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Okay, it creates a semblance of order for many of us to operate under. Okay, but from a higher perspective, there is no right or wrong. There is no bad. There is only good. And I'm going to talk about this. We're going to first start with talking about souls, those soul ages that I wrote about in The Art of Inner Alchemy, because it's going to become really critical when you think about life and perspective. So remember that baby souls are 20% of this world. They have very little wisdom. They're really new to being a soul. And so because they're so fresh from source, they're super innocent in their naivety and they're new to the ego. So for them, love is need. I need you to love me, okay? And they're so missing their oneness that they're looking for their oneness here. But they're really unwise and they don't really understand it's inside of them. So they join things like fundamental religions and cults and gangs and you know, close the borders mentality, blood is thicker than water mentality, you know, things like that. They don't know how to handle emotion well. They don't know how to handle conflict well. They're just new. So they're, you know, new souls. Not new souls, new to the human experience. So there's a lot of warring, a lot of strife, a lot of dysfunction, all kinds of violence is terrible. And they're so far from understanding earth energy that they don't know how to get the money, so they're poor. All right, lots of poverty. They are happiest when they just have this sense of belonging, okay, but they're super dysfunctional. So I want you to think about things like this. We're going to talk about rules and laws with each of our soul ages and what's right or wrong. When it comes to rules and laws for a baby soul, they often tend to slither under the laws, doing things illegally or doing things that maybe they shouldn't because they don't really have the wisdom and they're not an infant or young. This will make sense to you in a moment. They're so dysfunctional often that they can't follow the rules, like they'll kill someone or beat someone up or steal something because poverty also often dictates their illegal activity. They just don't have much wisdom. Okay, does that make them wrong? Guys, we've all been young souls or baby souls. We've all been young souls too. So are we going to point a finger and say, how dare you? Just think about it. Now, I'm not saying no accountability. We'll talk about that too. So let's think about this. What is right or wrong? Is it right to disown your children or family? For them, yes. If they reject you, then you're gonna disown them because you're so, as a baby soul, so new to the ego that love is need. And when you reject them, they will get viscerally upset and they will either kill you, you're out of the gang, you're out of the war, you're out of the family, I disown you. Okay? Is it wrong for them? No, that's who they are. Is it wrong to not shovel your walk, mow the lawn, keep the yard free of junk or your house free of filth? Well, when it comes to a baby's soul, who cares? I got other stuff to worry about. I don't have any money. My vibration is low. I feel terrible. I'm fighting with everyone around me. I don't give a rip whether I mow my lawn or not, because they're not infant souls. They're baby souls. They're tumultuous. So good, bad, right, or wrong? Is it? Think about this. Here's the infant soul. Now we've got 50% of the world. These are the baby souls who grew up a little bit, okay? They're all about conformity. They're all about, here's the box, get in it and stay in it. Okay, don't be weird. They're middle of the road on everything. They follow each other. They're a bunch of sheep, okay? They are starting to gain some wisdom, so they're not super tumultuous, okay? But they still gossip a lot and are self-righteous and judge and have expectations. They're usually middle of the road religion, middle of the road income. They work hard for their day's wage. These are the rules that we are expected to live by, and they live by them. They have the white picket fence mentality. They don't have junk all over their yards anymore because, you'll see in a moment, they're happy when everything is going according to plan. Okay, so let's look at those rules and laws for them. They follow the rules. There are expectations that we have in society, and they expect others to do as they do. And if you don't, they are very self-righteous about it. Well, this is not the right way to live your life. We're disappointed in you. Okay, they can't live out of the box or be seen as not normal, so they have to follow the rules. Okay, they're in the process of gaining wisdom. When it comes to what's right or wrong, is it right to disown your children or family? Well, absolutely, if they're gay. What if they're psychic? Oh my God. Okay, what if they're not following your expectations or rules? They don't like that. It makes them uncomfortable. So uncomfortable, they'd rather crawl out of their skin than be okay with it. My ex-mother-in-law disowned her daughter because she moved in with her fiance a month before the wedding. She had to postpone her wedding. 6 months later, her mother finally talked to her only if she would go to her grandfather and tell her the atrocity that she did. She couldn't see beyond it. Okay, so is it okay for her to disown her? Yes, she did something terrible. It was not expected. Okay, is it wrong not to shovel the walk and mow the lawn, keep the yard free of junk or the house free of filth? Absolutely, we don't do that. That's what infant souls are like. Does it make any of this right or wrong? No. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be like that. We don't get to judge them. Okay? We don't get to judge a baby soul who has junk all over their yard and fights all day drinking a can of Bud Light. You don't get to do that. Okay, not knocking anybody who fights or sits on the lawn drinking Bud Light. If you want to drink a Bud Light, drink a Bud Light. Okay, that's my best Wisconsin accent. You want to drink a Bud Light, you go drink a Bud Light, okay? Okay, Robin and Rick know what I'm talking about, don't ya? Okay, so young souls. Now we've got the infant souls growing up a little bit, okay? They're all about the ego. They've been on this earth enough. They know how to work with the ego now, and they're completely engulfed in it, all right? It's all about their earthly desires. That woman, that man, that car, that house is what really shows them they have worth and value. Okay, it's all about status. They're atheists. They don't believe in religion or the spirituality. Just show them the science. All right, it's all about themselves. Do you see my importance and my success? Do you see this? Yeah, I'm all that in a bag of chips. All right, they're high income. They know how to make the money, but they keep it from you. Okay, they're very manipulative, very powerful, very narcissistic. They're happiest when other people can just recognize how wonderful they are. Okay, so now let's look at the rules and laws when it comes to the young soul. Guys, they're above the law. Just in case you didn't know it, they're above the law. All right, they don't apply to them. They'll bend something or pay someone off. They make the rules. They're in government. They make the rules. Okay, they need to be seen as important in regard to those rules and government and legislation. They're on your school boards typically. They're on their town councils. Okay, they think they're wiser than you. No, are they? No, of course not. But that's, and I don't mean to look at this as bad. This is just who they are. Okay, you don't look at the terrible twos and think that that's a terrible human. No, it's a 2-year-old. Okay, same thing with a young soul. They're not bad. They're just not super ethical yet. Okay, now when it comes to what's right or wrong, is it right to disown your children or your family? Well, yes, of course. If they don't do as you say, then you're going to disinherit them. You are out of the will. Don't think that you're going to get any help from me anymore, Missy. Okay, that's what they do, right? Is it wrong not to shovel the walk, mow the lawn, keep the yard free of junk or house free of filth? I'm sorry, but we have others shovel and mow and clean. And I'm sorry, but we don't keep junk. Okay, I'm making fun, but I'm really not. All right, these are natural stages that we have to go through. And is there beauty and loveliness in all of these? Yes, of course. But you have to look at the mentality. When we look at good, bad, or right or wrong, okay, think about it a little bit more. Remember that mature soul? All of a sudden the veils are kind of lifted, and Rick's going to tell you a story about his veils getting lifted in a moment. It's fascinating, okay? In this stage, you're really in a place where you don't worry about, what you have to accomplish or what you have to do. I mean, you want to do well, and you do well most of the time, but you know that life is not about that. Life is about so much more. It's about growing something beautiful inside. Okay, very drawn to spirituality because of that. And you're really in this place where you're like, you know what, I got to have love, true internal love and compassion for myself and for others. So you really learn to look within. And that's what all of you are doing here. You have a very large capacity to love. Okay, but you also have a large capacity to feel pain. So you're very sensitive. Is wonderful. You want it, but it doesn't drive you or define you. Okay, you realize you can just manifest it. Okay, you balance your masculine and feminine energies, and you are happiest when you're able to do what you love, and you can feel passion and inspiration in your life. That's what's important to a mature soul. So now let's look at good, bad, right, or wrong for the mature soul. They don't care what you think of them. They'll live in a yurt because they want to do something different. The rules and laws for them, they try to follow the rules, okay, because they really want to be a good person. And many of them work to make the laws better. They're advocating for something great. They're trying to clean up the oceans. They're trying to get legislation passed for wonderful things, okay? They are often much more carefree. So sometimes they're like, well, I know society wants me to do this, but I can't, right? They're in the process of taming their ego and living into their wisdom. They can't live in the box, okay? So maybe they don't follow all the rules all the time, not because they're above them. It's just that, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't live like that. When it comes to what's right or wrong, is it okay to disown your family or children? Well, they don't disown anyone. They just try to find forgiveness. Even if they don't engage much anymore with their family, they realize, I still need to be a part of my family, but I don't want to disown them. I just realize that's not healthy for me. Okay. Is it wrong not to shovel the walk, mow the lawn, keep the yard free of junk or the house free of filth? Well, what they like to do is live in harmony with nature. They have a more minimalist type of living. It is respectful of the environment around them. That's how they like to live. They try to get back to nature. Okay. So now let's talk about these old souls. They're born with a purpose. They're teachers in training. They know all about wisdom innately. They just know. They're driven to help humanity grow. And they have kindness and kindness and acceptance for all soul ages. They're intuitive and they're connected to source, okay? And they're happiest when they can really operate without constraints of the ego. They just really try to tame it. And they accept the human condition for whatever it is. It's just perfect in whatever it is that they see it, okay? Their purpose is to live here with humility and modesty. So good, bad, right, or wrong? The old soul, they realize the rules are what they are. Okay, yeah, we got to follow them because they choose harmony and respect for those around them, including the laws. They usually don't draw to them things that persecute them. They just end up living a more simple, loving, carefree life because they don't worry about those rules. Even in the mature soul still gets upset by things like Trump being elected. Where an old soul is like, yeah, it's kind of perfect. It's not fun, but I can't hate the guy. I just can't, right? That's where it comes down to with the old souls. And again, it's like they know the rules and the laws, and it's like they just don't draw to them persecution because that's not their lesson anymore. So when it comes to what is right or wrong, is it right to disown your children or your family? Well, they realize their family is not on this earth. Their family, they chose for their human conditioning. So if it's an unhealthy, toxic family, they don't have a big parting. They just kind of separate themselves from them. Okay. And they might see them here and there, but if it's toxic, they don't go in. They also realize that as they change and grow, their family will change and grow. They know that you can change genetics, and they do. Is it wrong not to shovel the walk, mow the lawn, keep the yard free of junk or a house free of filth? Well, they don't care to impress anyone, that's for sure, but they want their outside to reflect their inside. They choose peaceful existence, so their home needs to reflect that, and clutter reflects disharmony. Okay? So I wanted to really point out to you these things about good, bad, right, wrong, all this stuff. Really? Who's the judge? I want you guys to think about this. Who is the judge? Is being in a cult right or wrong? No. When it comes to a baby soul, it's perfectly fine. That's what they're going through. Is hoarding money and not helping anyone else right or wrong? Not for a young soul. It's what they're supposed to do. It's not pleasant, but you know what? God loves narcissists because they help so many of us move on our journey. They deliver so many lessons for us. Okay? That's kind of good. Is not being able to live outside the box or live outside the box right or wrong? If you don't live in a white picket fence and you choose to live off the grid in a yurt, I think that's awesome. Okay, but others would judge it. Okay, it's not right or wrong. Who is the judge? Okay, is being okay with death right or wrong? You ask a baby soul, they'll give you one answer. You ask an older soul, you'll get another answer. Is stealing right or wrong? I want you to think about that. That's got a charge for a lot of people. Is it right or wrong? Whoever was stolen from chose the person who stole into their life just as perfectly. And the person who stole, that's a piece of their life lesson, so whatever. If they need to steal, whoever they're stealing from, they needed that kind of karma. I want you to think about that. Karma is your life lesson. They needed that kind of textbook in their life. Is having an affair right or wrong? Ooh, it's a charged one. Oh, there was my Wisconsin accent. There's a charged one, you know? Barbara. Okay, she's in Wisconsin. Okay, so here's an affair. You have husband and wife, or partner and partner, whatever you want to call it, okay? And then you've got somebody that someone had an affair with. Well, the cheater person, the other person, the third person, chose that those two partners, even though they're only having an affair with this one, they chose to be in this karmic triangle. Each person in that experience, partner, and the person that is the outside affair, yeah, y'all chose it. Every single one of you three chose each other. So is it right or wrong? Who's the judge? What right do we have to judge? You know, I've worked with some clients, and sweetest people you can ever imagine. And there's this one woman I think of all the time when it comes to affairs. Her affair saved her marriage. It saved her confidence. It brought her through a very hard time. The same thing happened with the person that she was having an affair with, and they both went back to their families. And nobody knew, but she did. And so I worked with her to help her to understand, how did that work for you? Why did this happen? What kind of life lesson were you working through? We don't get to judge. Okay, we don't get to judge. Who's the judge? Really? When it comes to what is good or bad, right or wrong, what is right for your life lesson is right for you. To get where you are in a mature or old soul status, if you want to call it that, I put that in air quotes because there is no status or hierarchy. But to get to that age, don't think that you haven't raped or murdered or killed, or murdered is killed. You weren't a pedophile. You didn't do terrible, awful things. Of course you did. Okay, that's what comes with going through soul lessons. And in this world, I have worked with pedophiles, sex offenders, attempted murderers, people who have done some terrible things, thieves. And you know what? I love them. All people are conditioned. All people in this life are hurt and do the hurting. All people act like jerks at varying levels. I have been a jerk in my life at times. Trust me on that one. Yes, okay? We're all the deliverers of each other's pain and lessons. Okay, don't think that you haven't delivered hard lessons to people. Don't think that you haven't been a jerk. Of course you have. Okay? All people are showing up as mirrors and teachers and textbooks for each other. So I've got a couple of questions. So let me move to these questions. Charlize loves my Wisconsin accent. Yeah, I get on the phone with a Wisconsinite and I'm instantly in it. Oh, yeah, I know. And it's no, just so you know. It's not no. It's sorry, no. It's no. Got an on the end. All right.
No.
So one of the, Charlize says, one of the best learning moments of my life was when the woman that my ex-boyfriend cheated on me with reached out to me for help. Oh, Charlize, I realized how much she was hurting and I was able to give her permission to let him go as I had. That is amazing. That is amazing. And that's exactly the sign of that soul who you are. You know, when you are in your wisdom, there, what do you have to judge? That somebody has a human condition? That's it. So all humans are conditioned. It's just that some conditioning is just uglier than others, messier or more in the public than others. So we can shake a finger all we want, but really, you have your life lessons too. You just play them out behind the closed doors. Okay? I worked, as I said, some clients through some really hard things. Some have gone through court trials. And I've been there working with them to find out why they did what they did. And they find beautiful love for themselves. They don't want to do what their egregious act was again. Okay? And I want to point out about accountability. It's part of the lessons we live here. Should you have it? Yes. If it's necessary, should that person go to jail? Yeah, it's part of the accountability. Okay, it's cause and effect, cause and effect. That's what we're doing here. Having the accountability helps us to be wise. Okay, and all that wisdom that we gain through having the accountability and doing the stupid thing creates wisdom. Okay, and wisdom creates goodness and kindness and generosity and gratitude and compassion. And these are only attained when we do something egregious and can forgive ourselves for it. And then we can forgive others. And it's called being humanly conditioned. That's what we forgive ourselves for. And that's what we forgive others for. When it comes to somebody who has is just tumultuous and has done so many illegal acts and smoking up on heroin all the time, I don't want to judge them, but I'm not going to invite them over for a barbecue either. Okay? I'm careful about who I surround myself with, who I bring into my inner circle, just because I care about my energetic field and who I care to interact with. But just like a baby in this world, I'm not going to choose a 12-year-old as my best friend. It doesn't make any sense for me. We don't relate. I don't judge that person for being 12. They're just 12. Kind of like when it comes to a baby soul. I don't judge a baby soul. I don't really want them in my life. We don't relate. If I say something like, well, you can heal your own body, they'd be like, what? You're stupid. No, I disown you and reject you. Okay, that's because that's what they are like. Okay, so I've got a comment here. So let me see what it is. Kathleen says, sign in my office. Relax. We're all crazy. It's not a competition. I love that. It's so true. Relax. We're all crazy. It's not a competition, man. It's not. And and I write that in my book. We're all just a bunch of walking wounded weirdos. That's it. So this world, guys, think of this. It is created for us to learn in. It is created for us to epically fail and make disgusting mistakes all the time. It is created for us to gain wisdom in. It is created to experience good and bad. It is created to condition us at varying levels of pain, wounding, and internal loathing so that we can work through and find something different. This world causes all human beings to act bad at times. Lessons are lessons. There's no good or good, and there's no bad or bad. It's just we've all been good and we've all been bad. And some just are uglier than others. Some look prettier than others. It's not good. There's varying degrees of good and varying degrees of bad. There's only humanly conditioned people. In German, I learned Punkt. That's it. Okay. So I want to have a little conversation before we jump over to something really cool to talk about. I want you to think of the most frustratingly terrible person that you can think of. Who is the most vile person you can think of? Vile. I'm hearing Trump all the time. You should hear it. Okay? So many people say that right now, especially in Europe. Oh, they hate the guy. Okay, hate him. How do they become who they are? I'm living in Germany. I have to, I've got Hitler. Okay. Was he a bad guy? He did stupid stuff. He was conditioned terribly. Is he a bad soul? No. I don't have the right to hate him. Do I like a lot of what politicians do? No. But I don't have the right to judge that that's where they're at, that they're a quintessential young soul. I don't get to judge that. Who's the awful person who hurt you? They showed up in your life because you called them to you. They showed up in your life as your teacher, as your textbook. Don't judge. You don't know what's right or wrong. God knows what's right or wrong, and he doesn't have right or wrong. Everything is right because it's here to teach you. Okay, I'm going to open this up to comments. What you think about all that, eh? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Nine? Nine? Okay, so Kathleen comes in and she says, okay, so nasty person was my brother. Okay, and why did you draw him in? And why did he do what he did? What lessons was he teaching? And why is he the way he is? That's the only thing you can do. And Charles says, isn't it wrong to hurt someone on purpose? No. Is it pleasant? No. No, it's not pleasant. But I'm going to guarantee you that God, source, your guides, my guides, they don't judge it. They say that person hurt someone on purpose because they were so wounded internally and in so much internal pain that they hurt someone else, even if they murder. Okay? Should they have accountability? Of course. We have to have some rules and order here. We'd all just run around doing whatever we wanted. Okay? And accountability is there. Okay? Okay, Lindsay says, does that mean there are no truly dark forces at play? Okay, I'm going to talk about that since you brought that up. Okay, there are egos. Okay, humans have an ego, and our ego is dark. It wants to keep us in pain. It wants to keep us judging. It wants to keep us pointing the finger. But you know what the reality is? There are ugly people who have ugly conditioning, who are beautiful souls. And when it comes to entities, are there entities? Of course. There are souls that are human who chose when their time was up to not move on because they're afraid that they're going to be judged. And so they are playing out their karma in purgatory, which is spirit world. And can they become darker and darker and darker? Yeah, but they don't go out into source. They don't come from source. They don't play in source. That is not existing in source. In between our earthly world, there's a place, and then let's just pretend this is heaven over here. Okay, so we got earth and we got heaven. Well, right in here, purgatory is the place where you go and kind of debrief about your lessons. So here's how I want you to think of it. There's school, right? Earth school. And then there's summer break, where you get to kind of reflect and kind of play a little bit and get into some good energies. Then you got to go back to school. Okay? But you haven't graduated yet. That's like our souls. We are in this existence, okay? And what happens is that in this existence, we've got the purgatory. And when you're done with all, you just keep reincarnating. And after you're done and you are unconditionally loving, then you will go over to heaven. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so dark forces are human entities who chose not to hang out where they're supposed to. They need to go into the light so they can get debriefing, but they choose to not do that. They kind of stay on the edge and they don't go. So yeah, we don't, and here's the other thing. You can attract those energies to you. You can attract those dark spirits to you if your energy is vibrating in a low place. They can whisper in your ear because they love to create havoc, okay? They love to have you get upset. They want to see you kill themselves and yourself and join them, okay? But you know what? Here's the thing. If you're in a good place and you're not judging and you really just open up to source and say, I'm just a part of beautiful, God-loving source energy, they can't play with you. There's nothing to play with. Okay. So Charlize says, part of me relates to my baby and infant soul lives still. Whenever we cover soul ages, I can completely relate to all those younger souls. Yes, I've been there. When you're a baby, let's say you're an infant soul, okay? So remember, it goes baby, infant, young, mature, old, and then you go back to source. So if you're an infant soul, You can play around in babyland and here, but you cannot relate to these other because you've never been them. If you are a mature soul, you're down here, you can play around in baby, infant, young, and early and immature, but you can't play around at old soul because you're not there yet. But you've got all this space to relate to. Okay. And in this lifetime, you'll probably visit different times in your life where you've experienced different parts of that. Okay. Whatever you need revisiting, but you're not going to go past it. Okay. If you're an old soul, you can play all around in there. All right. That's the way it works. All right. So Kathleen says, so we both chose my mom, but as siblings, there's not much karma between siblings. Yes, there is. But the attachment is with parents? Sorry, I thought you had said our siblings are not a lasting connection. They don't have to be. It depends on the karmic lessons that you're playing out together. He's still in your life, even if he's not in your life. He's still affecting you, so he's still a part of your karma, like it or not. Bella says, does every living being on earth have a soul? Yes. Also, does every soul exist in a pure state, conditioned and unconditioned? Or can the soul be affected during earth or time in purgatory? Here's the thing. You can't not go back to source. You can't not. Every soul on this earth will eventually, whether they're learning their lessons in purgatory or whether they're learning them here or whether they're back and forth, okay? Every soul will eventually figure out that they're a part of source and go back. You can't not. Okay? Every soul is good. We just create these fantasies about this lasting evil. No, the evil is the ego. Okay? And there are human souls who just can't move out of it. Kathleen says, wait, so we don't get to go to heaven, back to source, till we mastered mature? No, till you master old. Dang, that could be a long time, even as time does not really exist in our linear time. Eventually, yeah, of course we go. We will go. And there is no time, and it doesn't matter. To a soul, it's like, okay, it's a blip on a screen. I just did 2,000 lives. It took me that long to figure it out. Hey, guys, how you been doing up here in source? That was fun. Okay? All right. So we have like 20 minutes. And we can come back to some of these questions, but I want to have Rick and Robin share a story that happened to them recently. And let's see, let me pin your video. And you tell me how you would like to go about this, how much you want me to jump in, or if you guys want to just take it and share your story, but share your story. It's amazing. We're so lucky that they've decided to share this.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, Rick says I'll have to talk for him because he's tired. It's actually 1 month today that he woke up in ICU after having an aortic dissection, which is an extremely rare heart event to live through. It killed John Ritter, it killed Alan Thicke, and 85% of people, from what they tell us, won't survive the first dissection of the blood vessels leading from the aorta. And of the people who survive and make it to the hospital, there's a much smaller percentage who make it, get diagnosed, and make it through surgery. So we knew after the fact, after the surgery, that Rick was medically given less than 10% chance of survival through the surgery. So that happened a month ago last night. It was about a 6-hour repair and about 3 hours before they could close him back up. He was on a bypass machine, so his heart had stopped beating and his lungs had stopped. Something that nobody knew. Rick didn't know, Kelly didn't know. There's so many things we could talk about. We could talk about floating above his body. We could talk about writing on the wall. We could talk about his guides telling him how to dry his lungs. We could talk about, I'm trying to give him antipsychotics in ICU because he kept telling them there were gray people that wouldn't leave him alone. Where do you want to go?
Start at the beginning. Start at when he was in surgery and I had texted you. Let's start there.
Okay, so he's in surgery, and at this point, We had no idea how long he'd truly been in because it was an emergency transport. We feel that he went in sometime about 7 to 8 o'clock Friday night on January 10th. And we had one update, and that's because I made the security guards go to the surgical floor and try to find somebody and let me know that he was still alive. So throughout this 9 hours, we had one person contact us because it's the middle of the night. So we're getting nervous. My daughter's there, my son's there. Our friends who drove me stayed with me, and that was it, my daughter's boyfriend. And we're just hanging out all night. And all of a sudden, we get a text from Kelly that says, I'm with him. They must have stopped his heart because he's floating over his body, but he knew who I was. I don't know if you remember this part. Do you remember that part now?
Being there. I don't remember.
Later on, Wednesday, he does remember. He comes to Wednesday and remembers at that time. Now his conscious brain doesn't remember it, but he told me the same story when he came around later. So Kelly tells us the story. They must have stopped his heart. Nobody knew. They did, but we didn't know. He's floating above his body. He told me, like, she told him who she was. And I guess everything was calm. And Rick reports feeling calm the minute he made it to the hospital, that he knew they were going to save him. And they must have, at this point, they must have put his heart back online. Because later on, the surgeon told us that as soon as they tried to restart his heart, it instantly fired right up. And Kelly's text had said, I told him it was time to go back now. And Rick, when he woke up and told me the story, said, she told me it was time to go back. And I said, okay. And
yeah, actually, I think what happened is he woke up and he was just like, I'm dying. Didn't he say something like that? And then he was floating, and then I was there.
He was clear. So Saturday, he's doing fine. The surgery's over. It was about, Kelly had gotten a hold of us probably about 20 or so minutes before the surgeon came and said, he's stable but critical. We got his heart back online right away. His lungs are working, but it's going to take about 3 hours to clot the blood, put him back together. And then, so that was Saturday. Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 3 days, he'd been in a fog. He's recovering, he's in ICU. Fentanyl in his neck every time he had pain. And he's sitting there and he's looking around ICU and he goes, what is this writing all over the walls? And I'm like, there's no writing. And he looked at the door to the bathroom. He's like, it's all over the door. And I'm like, there's no writing. He's like, yeah, there's this reddish pink writing all over the wall. Now you'll have to pull up your picture. He has pictures of the wall. He was taking pictures of the wall in ICU to try to prove to us that there was writing on the wall, but it's not. And I said, no, Rick, there's no writing. And I'm starting to think he's lost his mind because they told us he could be a vegetable. They told us he might never wake up. He might have brain damage. And here he is. He's like, there's right. He's like, it's on the Jell-O. It's all over the water pitcher. And then he looks back at the door and he goes, can't the door at least use a paint job? So I don't know what door he was seeing, but he's seeing writing everywhere. And then one of the day nurses comes in, who I didn't think was the nicest of our nurses. And he's like, oh, it looks like you got yourself a trip for a brain scan, because Rick is like saying he's seeing things and there's stuff everywhere. There's writing on his food. And then Rick looks, he's like, why are there bees flying all around this room? And I'm like, oh God, his brain has gone. So he's seeing things all day. They put him to bed and I say, he's not right. Like his demeanor is off. Something is wrong. He's not right. Don't leave me alone with him tonight. He's not right. Well, for some reason that night, the nurse left us alone more than they needed to, which I think there was a reason for that. I think we needed to have this connection. And our daughter was there and I was behind his chair and I'm reading all of these just really great things from people and support and kind words, and I'm tearing up and I'm getting emotional. And Rick feels that from across the room. He's going, what's going on? Is someone crying? Who's crying? What's going on over there? And I'm like, oh, I'm just really emotional because people are being so kind. So in retrospect, I think what happened later was his response to me being upset. Because about 1 a.m, Wednesday morning, after the hallucinations that we thought were hallucinations, after seeing writing, after seeing bees flying around, after seeing this ancient door that needed a paint job, gray people came at 1 o'clock in the morning. So then gray people came. So he wakes up at 1 a.m, and I had just fallen asleep. So I sat and I'm watching his scanners, and I'm watching everything going, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. So I'd finally gone to sleep, and he wakes up screaming, hey, what is all of this? What am I doing? What's going on? Where am I? And I run over and I'm hitting the buzzer, and nobody's coming, and nobody's coming, and nobody's coming. And I'm holding him down. He's like, I gotta get up. I gotta go. I gotta take a walk. I'm like, no, you can't walk anywhere. And he starts going, my chest is burning. I'm dying. And I said, no, you're fine. You're fine. You know, you're already at the hospital. He had zero concept of anything about the world. I said, remember, you left work last week and you weren't feeling well. He's like, work? I'm like, your job. What's a job? And I said, do you know what year it is? He's like, year? And I'm like, do you know what year you were born? And he's like, born? I'm like, oh boy. He's lost his, like, at this point, he's like, oh my God, what's going on? And I'm still pressing the buzzer. I'm like, he's hallucinating. Get somebody in here. This is ICU. I think, like I said, there's a reason that we had to go through this alone. So I'm calming him down. He finally, and I said, who am I? You're my wife, of course. What's my name? Your name is Robin. I'm like, okay. So he knows the only thing he knows in the world is he is Rick and I am Robin, and there's no years and there's no jobs and there's no birthdays, and that's all we know is he's like floating in space. He'd been really in a fog. So once I calmed him down, the first thing he said is, I've had the strangest dreams. And I said, well, tell me about them. Maybe they aren't dreams. And he goes, his eyes get really big, and he can't remember now. I'm sure one day he will remember, but he can't remember now. But he was very clear that he said, I was floating above my body. I'm like, oh, tell me more. That wasn't a dream. And he goes, I was so calm, which is exactly what Kelly had texted me, that there was calm, no chaos, no. And I said, oh, did you see anybody while you were there? He goes, thinks for a while, and furrows his brows, and he goes, Kelly was there. Like, he's so animated, and he's been so not animated for 4 days. And I said, yeah, she was. I said, tell me what she looked like. He's like, thinks for a little bit. He goes, can't explain it. I said, well, then how did you know who she was? Show me your name. I said, oh, what else? He's like, thinks for a while longer. He's like, she told me it was time to go back now. And I said, okay. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happened. And then he goes like this. He goes, like, his mind, he goes, his brain thinks, he goes, that shit is real. And I said, okay. And he's like, not like I didn't believe it, but damn, that shit's real. And I'm like, okay, Rick. Okay. And still no nurse, still no doctors. We're going through all of this. And what else did you talk about? His arm had been paralyzed since surgery, like completely couldn't lift it at all. Couldn't move his fingers. And he looks at me, and I said, you know, you're fine. You've gone through a heart surgery. You're fine. And he goes, how did I? And he looks down at himself, and he's like, how do I look this good if I already had heart surgery? I'm like, I don't know, but you did, and it's okay. And at this point, I'm getting a little worried, because you hear people peak before they die. And he's completely peaked. Like, we're having these intellectual, spiritual conversations. And he sits up really fast, and he goes, you know what? And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm going to be okay. And he's super intimate. And we're going to be okay. And then he lifts his arm that hasn't moved in 4 days. And this is going to be okay. And I was like, oh, what is going on? And finally, the doctor starts to come. Oh, and then he sits up and he just starts bawling, and he goes, I'm alive. I'm alive. And I'm like, yes. So finally the doctors come in, and they thought they're doing the stroke test. Oh, before that, he looks at me and he goes, there are gray people. Like, he's like, you know, the Power Rangers putties, they don't have faces, but they're gray. He goes, he looks at me, and here's the doctors are all around us, and they're performing stroke tests, and they're like, and they won't leave us alone. And I'm ignoring the doctors, and I'm thinking, well, there's something he brought back with him. He's afraid of them. And I said, well, tell them to leave you alone. And Rick's like, they won't leave. They don't chase me, but they won't leave. And the doctors are looking at both of us like, yeah, they're both going in the psych ward. So I'm texting Kelly, I'm like, oh my God, he woke up, there's gray people, he's talking about writing all over the wall. She's like, I know exactly what's going on, I'm gonna call you. So across from the ICU, Rick is going through the whole stroke test. At this point, there's 5 people around his bed, and they think he's lost his noodles, and they're, smile, stick your tongue out. I'm completely ignoring that. I've got the phone. I walk into the middle of this stroke medical nonsense going, this isn't what he needs. I'm not saying it out loud. And I looked at Rick and I said, oh, because Kelly had said he's too far into source. He's not grounded yet. He needs to kind of ground himself. I didn't even consider that the doctors would think, what is this woman doing? I just plowed right into this group of doctors. And I was like, Rick, Kelly's on the phone and you need to talk to her. You need to do a grounding meditation. Because that's a normal thing in ICU. So hand the phone to him and I'm listening and Kelly's like, put it on speaker. I'm like, they're right here. That might be a little too far. I'll just listen in. So they're still doing a stroke thing and I'm holding a phone up to his ear, making him do a grounding meditation. And he's still talking about gray people. And I'm like, shh. Oh yeah, there's that too. So Wednesday, they want to drain the fluid around his lungs because he's having trouble breathing. And it's getting pretty serious and they're getting pretty worried and they can't drain it because they have it on blood thinners. And Rick, later on Wednesday, Thursday, I'd have to look at my notes. I wrote notes about all of this because I knew I'd forget the dates. Rick kind of like looks at me and he's like, yeah, he's like, they're showing me gurgling water. So I'm like, okay. And he's like, they're showing me a drain with water around it, but there's nowhere, like the drain is too high up. So here's me asking my husband to scan his body to see what's wrong with his lungs, totally normal stuff. And what else did they start showing you?
Like things drying up.
First he started saying, they're showing me hairy fish with hair. It's like they're showing me crayfish, they're showing me lobsters, they're showing me things that are supposed to be in water that are out of water. And he's like, and they started like, he couldn't explain how he could see these images. He closed his eyes and just get flashes. And he's like, they're showing me in a way I'd understand. And he said, they're showing me a wet cave and then they're showing me the cave dry. It's like they're showing me wood and then they're showing me sawdust. So they scanned his lungs in the morning and there's pockets of water, pockets of fluid. And they're like, well, we're gonna go get a better ultrasound machine to show where these fluid actually is. So they went and got their better machine and they came back probably about 7-8 hours later. And Rick looked at me and he's like, there's no more, it's done. They told me it's done. And they're looking and looking and looking and they're like, well, we can't medically explain this. There's no more pockets of fluid around his lungs. And Rick's like, looks at me and said, I told you. And they walked out and they're like, there's no medical explanation for this. And Rick looked at me and said, they just don't understand. And so he's talking about these gray things. He's like, when I close my eyes, he's like, it's almost like they were in some type of vehicle or craft and they just fly in front of him and look at him.
Their face at the window looking at me as a joke. Never scared me, never came at me.
So, and then he looked at me and he goes, because they kept trying to give him antipsychotics. They thought that he was off his rocker. They wanted to give him drugs. And he looked at me one day and he's like, I probably shouldn't say this in front of them anymore, should I? And I'm like, no. Shh. So then he still couldn't fill his lungs. His lungs still weren't filling. So I'm like, well, Rick, can you like scan your body and like see what's wrong with your lungs? He's like, oh, he's like, they're going to do it for me. I said, how do you know? He's like, they told me they're going to fill my lungs back up. Okay. So we just started accepting all of this, and we just told him he couldn't share it with the doctors anymore. And he kept seeing the writing, kept seeing the writing, kept seeing the writing. And Kelly did send us samples, and he did identify it as that, what was it? The angel script?
Yeah, actually, I see this writing a lot, and it's interesting. I've seen like numbers on walls and people and things like that, and then writing. But the writing for me, I don't know if it was for you, Rick, but the writing is so it's like every space is covered with writing, like every space.
I couldn't make out what it said. I could not make out anything, but it was there.
I'll pull up a picture for everyone. It's called Angelic Writing, and it's really beautiful. It's a very beautiful script, and what I am hearing about your room is that there is a particular like coding, like code CODE coding that needed to be in your room for your recovery. Those beings were beautiful guides who were there to make sure you made it through, because it's not your time.
Oh, apparently not.
But this experience was planned, is what I hear all the time. This experience was planned.
Yeah.
Let me pull up some writing while you're talking.
So many crazy stories that happened in ICU. And Rick told, in the middle of all of getting healed, Rick has been practicing guitar. He's a recent guitar player. So in the middle of, let's get out of ICU and heal our hearts, apparently Rick decided to ask his guides to help him progress in his advance in his guitar lessons, because that was a concern when we were in ICU.
Yes.
So Rick says he got his message delivered by, you can go ahead and say it.
An amp fell down from the sky in front of me and bounced on the ground. Like, yes, we will give you what you need.
Because your music profession is much more important than getting out of the hospital. And I kept saying, Rick, why don't you ask them about important things? And he's like, oh, it's okay. We've already made our plan. I'm getting out of here on Wednesday. And he did get out the next Wednesday. I just stopped questioning it. It's okay.
I was in control of what was going to happen. Not the doctors, not the hospital.
Yeah. He always knew he was in control the whole time. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay. This world is, seriously, it is so amazing. There's so much more. And I think if I have shared I put a little bit in the book, books that I wrote, and I've told you guys some things, but if I told you everything that I've experienced, you would want to commit me. You would be like, I can't even talk. She's flipping whack. I don't tell people really that there's writing on things or that there are gray people. I call them the misty people. When I go to visit someone in their body, I'm in their body. When I go into somebody's room remotely, I'm in their room. When I go in the past to see your young kids, I'm in your past. And these things are extremely possible. It's just that we're so limited in our thinking that we think that we can't. So I want to open up this picture for you. I'm going to share my screen. And so give me a second. This beautiful stuff is called Angelic Writing. Right there. Let me make it a little bigger for you.
That was yours. Yeah, at one point, Rick got so frustrated that we couldn't see it. He said, do you want me to write it on the wall for you? And although I did, I really thought that would get us in huge trouble with the ICU doctors, and we'd both be medicated. They came in and there was writing on the wall.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And when I see it, I usually see kind of not necessarily this color background, but I kind of see it. Sometimes it's really pencil thin and you can see it it's all together. Like it's beautiful.
For you, it was reddish pink, you kept saying?
Yeah, it was like a reddish pink writing.
Yeah. So let's open it up and see if anyone has questions, because that's quite a story, you guys. Oh, it's 7:03. So, if you want to stay, you're welcome. So I apologize if we're, that we are a little over. But if you guys want to ask some questions, go ahead and do that. And let's see if you guys want to answer any, because it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's the tip of the iceberg.
It really is.
Yeah. While we're waiting to see if anyone has, oh no, that's the old question. So while we're waiting to see, it takes time for people to type, and you're also welcome to unmute too. But I will say that that when it comes to like the Misty people or things like that, we're always watched after. And it's so funny. It's like, do your guides always see what you do, even if you masturbate? Yeah, they do. Sorry. But you know what? They don't care. They're like, yeah, that's part of life. We know that. Your body is like a computer, and if you work your computer that way, it's going to feel nice. We don't blame you. Okay, so they're funny about all this. They're like, yeah, we see it all.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, this is just for Robin and Rick. I was just wondering, like, I know you guys really well, but I wanted to know, like, for Rick, like, what's your big takeaway from all of this? Like, I know your life has changed significantly, but what's like the big, huge takeaway?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I know I've changed in many ways. I'm very emotional now. I can cry at the drop of a dime. Starting to hear things right now. I mean, I can't even explain. There's so many things I don't even know where to start.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming and visiting you guys as soon as I feel better. So
I'll be here.
very happy you're here.
Question.
Yeah.
So Kathleen had a question. She said, thank you for sharing. It's an amazing story. And she said, are you still in touch with the gray people? How did the episode first happen? Like, did you pass out? Did you have chest pains? It was something so extreme. How did they even know what the problem is? Okay.
Well, they didn't know what the problem was, and right now we're starting our work with the John Ritter Research Foundation to bring more awareness so that emergency room doctors can find this better, because we did definitely spend a couple of weeks in anger over the misdiagnosis and the delay in diagnosis, because it was very extreme in the way that he was treated at the first hospital. It was not good, and it would definitely cause death for most people.
I could see how it started. It started with a rapid heartbeat, like felt like I was going 250 beats per second. It just went crazy. Shooting pain went up both sides of my neck into my jaw, and I got this incredible pain in my back. I tried to stand up, and that's when the pain in the back started. I was on a piece of equipment at work too, so I felt like I was going to pass out. I sat down. It lasted maybe 2 minutes and started getting better. It started lightening down, lessening, and I called my boss and said, I come on here and help me. Something happened. I don't know what. I need help.
And the hospital tried to send him home for 24 hours with a heart monitor and telling him he had heartburn, even though he couldn't walk because the tear. If you Google aortic dissection, it's very scary. That's why we don't advocate Googling that. Go to the John Ritter Foundation, because they have much better information. And he only had a 52 beat per minute heart rate for 24 hours. And I kept saying, no, you're not sending him home. You're not sending him home. So our biggest takeaway as we organize our information and try to get advocacy out there is just to listen to your body and be your own advocate and know when something's wrong, and don't assume that everybody knows everything. A lot of people know a lot of things, but everybody doesn't know everything. And if I hadn't stayed on them, they would have sent him home.
So there are a couple other comments. Wendy just said, thank you for sharing. This is amazing. And Kathy says, wow, Robin, you saved Rick's life.
I helped. I helped.
I would say it's a good combination between you and the gray people.
The gray people. Yeah, I think he's lost touch with the gray people.
Yeah, I have not seen them since the hospital. One day they just disappeared. The writing disappeared all at the same time, and that was it.
Are you still?
I do feel that it'll come back for him, though, not necessarily the writing, because that was very specific for that situation, and so were the gray people. But I do feel like you're going to start to see more, see more, see more. And as the emotions start to stabilize, it feels like you're going to become very sensitive to other people's emotions. So, that's why I told him, I said, call me when that happens, and we'll give you some assistance.
He's already hearing things, but he says it comes out of his shoulder. And I said, it's a good thing that didn't happen. You didn't tell the doctors that, because it was all I could do to get them to not give him antipsychotics. I kept saying, no, he doesn't need them.
Yeah, thank God you didn't put him on the antipsychotics.
I know. I knew what it was, but they didn't want to believe me, and I thought we were both going to go in a padded room along with you.
So that's why I keep quiet about a lot of mine.
Yeah. I told Kelly I was on the hippie watch list after moving them aside so I could have Rick do a grounding meditation. Yeah.
So Charles says, Kelly, how did you know to contact them? Well, Barbara, who is right here with the black sweater and long hair, she actually sent me a text about what had happened, and then I reached out to Robin. And how much did you know before you called them? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I didn't call her. I texted her and said, are you okay? What's going on? And she told me, I said, I'm going to go in. I'll get right back to you. And I just floated into his room through remote viewing. And I went in, and if the table was here, he was up in this part of the room, and I saw him right away, and I went right to him, and I said, do you know what happened? Are you okay? Hey, it's Kelly. Are you okay? And we kind of had this conversation. He kind of didn't. And I told him about a little bit more. And I just said, you got to get back in your body. It's time for you to get back. And he's like, okay.
And then Robin and I spoke about that afterwards, Kelly, and I was sending him Reiki because I learned from you. And I just got this really loud message. You gotta, Kelly can help us. You gotta get a hold of Kelly. You gotta get a hold of Kelly. And Robin said that that's what she was saying and wanting to do when she was praying and sending out messages. And I just heard it so loud. I'm like, I have to send Kelly a message. And Robin told me later that she was saying, Kelly, I want to send Kelly a message, but I'm afraid if she doesn't reply, it means that he's not going to make it. So
yeah.
Robin are like, oh, I must have heard you because you were so loud.
Yeah, and I don't blame her. I don't know if you guys caught that. Robin was afraid to reach out to me because if I had said, no, I don't think he's going to make it, she couldn't handle that.
Well, she didn't think if you didn't reply at all, she would think that you didn't let her know.
My mind would have gone to a weird place. Like, it would have been logical that you wouldn't have seen a text because of the time difference. But in the state I was in, if somebody didn't reply to me, I would have immediately been like, she's not getting back to me because she knows it's bad. So I couldn't even take the chance of contacting you. It was just, that was what was going on in my mind. Because my mind wasn't even cognizant of time change or difference. I couldn't even think. I just thought, I want to get a hold of Kelly, but if she doesn't get back to me, I won't be logical. I'll just think it's terrible.
Yeah. And Kathleen says, oh, bless your heart, Robin.
Thank
and Bella
you.
commented, she's such an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. As for projection, that'd be a cool future topic. Agreed.
There's so many branches that his story goes into. So many, from the healing, from how we got to the perfect place to get to the perfect place, even through all of the misdiagnosis, everything laid out in front of us exactly how it should have. Whether we preferred it this way or not, it laid out the way it should have.
When we trust, what comes through us, and we're amazing beings. We're not humans. We're souls having an experience. And when we open up and trust that, the other day, a woman who is also a member of our group contacted me. Oh no, she's not. She's a member of a different group. She contacted me and she said, I'm having this concern. My doctor had a mammogram and they're very concerned and they want me to come in. I'm terrified. I'm like, oh, let me go in a remote view. So I went into her breast and I'm like, oh, and I text back to her and she has all these texts. I said, okay, no worries, you're fine. What they're going to find is above the left nipple on the top, right behind, there's a fatty tissue, but this fatty tissue is also connected into the nipple. And so that's what they're worried about. It's like a fatty tumor. And she's like, oh, okay, I hope you're right. I'm like, I'm right. It's okay. And she goes to the doctor and she texts back and she's like, yeah, it's in my left breast. It's a fatty tumor. I'm like, yeah, I know. You're fine. But we can do this if we stop thinking we're so limited.
Yeah, Rick healed his lungs, many other things, many other conversations he had. The asking to advance on his guitar playing was just, he was going to play around a little bit with that. He's so silly. As they're loading him into the ambulance, he looked up over his toes and he's like, do I get a new guitar for this? I'm like, sure. Okay, I saw somebody's question came over. I didn't see the whole thing about were the doctors listening to the spiritual side of the story. Absolutely not. They tried to give him antipsychotics the entire time we were there. I kept saying no, and they were so worried about his, quote, hallucinations.
I had to lie to them and say, yeah, I don't see anything anymore.
He just started lying. He's like, I see nothing, and then they'd leave, and he'd be like, the writing is all over the place. I'm like, I know.
Charlize is a doctor, by the way. She said, I read in Richard Gerber's book, Vibrational Medicine, that doctors in Atlantis use psychic surgery or deep meditation for anesthesia. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many crazy things that just bring all of this back around. Everything that we've been working on with you for a couple of years, and everything that the group connects on, and yeah.
Oh, we can't hear him.
Yeah, it's
everything. There's a reason for everything. I've taken that for sure. Everything there's a reason for.
Yeah, he truly understands the connections.
So I have one more question, Kelly.
Yeah.
I just remember Rick and Robin talking, and Rick talking about, having to work for so many more years, and it was going to take a certain amount of time, and you're like, no, something's going to come before that. You're not going to work that long.
Every single time, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it stuck out in my mind. I was like, did you know this was going to happen, or just something was going to happen?
I just knew that what he was saying wasn't true. That's all I can really feel. So I didn't know this was going to happen. What I could feel every time he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to be, I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And you could just feel it. It's a non-truth. So, yeah. Anyway, I have to personally go. It's 7:15 at night here in Italy, and I'm supposed to meet the group from the conference. But you guys, thank you so much for sharing. And if you're ever ready to do a little podcast about this or a video about this, let me know. I'd love to get this out to people, whenever you feel ready, or if you feel ready to share the story. It's not easy to put yourself out there that way. I know.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be a huge takeaway for both of us, is that it's so easy now to just tell people to say, we really don't care to share those details, because it's so helpful for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. And you have a couple comments. Lindsay says, what a fascinating and incredible story. Thank you for sharing. Blessings of strength and support as you continue on your journey, Rick and Robin. And Kathleen says, thank you, Kelly, Rick, and Robin. I feel so blessed to be in this group. We're blessed to have you, darling. She said, awesome sauce. Okay, guys. I love you guys so much, and I'm so happy you're still on this planet, Mr. Rick.
Yeah.
All right. Have a happy Saturday, y'all.
Give me a round of applause for that, Rick.
Yes. Bye, everyone.